Hello and welcome to Man's Model Moments. So, last live stream of the year, I think. Thank you for joining me. I hope you all had a very Merry Christmas. And here we are 2 days later, looking at the short skipper. So, I did do a little bit, I think off camera, or at least the bits have joined up from when we last spoke, because I think they're all very tentative. So this is the stumpy girl herself so far. So this is where we closed up all of the portholes. I'll move the camera down shortly. And this is where the plasticard was added to the wings, and then obviously put all of the sprue goo on that. So quick update from my side. Today I finished recording, or did the audio recording for the 2023 roundup. That's going to be going out on Friday, so I uploaded that before this tonight. And where's my keyboard? Say hello to everybody in the chat. I can say hello here, obviously, as well. But just so that you know that I am typing as well. So yeah, did the 2023 roundup, went a little bit into what I'm going to be doing in 2024, a couple of things that I want to be doing sort of ongoing in the stream and on the channel in general. But tonight, of course, we're going to be just doing the old skipper. Probably a fairly short one tonight. I don't want to be taking up too much of your time. I don't want to take up too much of my girlfriend's time. Time not doing all of that other stuff that we have to do to pay the bills, work, and all that kind of thing. The time with our families is fairly precious. So I don't want to be too long today, but I thought, as people have asked for several times, have asked for the short skipper to be featured once more. Now it seemed like a good time. So there's still a lot of work to do on her for sure, but she is starting to, she's pretty strong. She's not going to fall to bits just like that. So that's a good thing. So let me get the camera down so you can actually see what I'm doing a little bit better. There we go. Hopefully that stays where it should. And let me actually move the keyboard back. Pull this a little bit forward. So the wings, I haven't clamped the wings here yet. That's going to need a fair bit of force. I have taken out a little bit. I think I did that on stream last time here, just to allow them to close up, because otherwise the pressure is going to be too great on this. I think I might need to take out a little bit more just to give that, to stop that pressure being, trying to force them apart being too much. Filling this in afterwards is easy. You can also see that's the plasticard put in, and the sprue goo that's gone over the top. So we do have obviously that to build up still. That will need a little bit more, maybe one or two, so at least 2 applications. Get that up, and then of course we have the engines. The other thing I did, which you guys won't have seen at all, is I actually tried making an equivalent aircraft to this on the game Flyout, which I mentioned in at least one of the other streams, I think maybe 2. And it's interesting because I couldn't get it to fly at all. Now, I am very green at the game, so it's probably something I'm doing wrong. But with 4 engines, she didn't have enough power to get up in the air. So that's not a good sign. So we'll see what goes from there. Now, let me just try and get the image. So I've got a reference. It's taking a little bit of time. So whilst it does that, some of the other pieces out here. Now, I still haven't done anything to this wing. I've just not had a chance to do that. So I do need to remove these pieces, but that I can do, you know, anytime. And it's not really going to be any different than what we've seen already. So we do need to work a little bit on these pieces. Sexy gogs, can't do without those. So I do need to sort of carve this back a bit. And this is all going to be fairly rough work at this stage because we're making major alterations to what we're doing. So this is very much what in the 70s they would call kit bashing, where you take a donor kit and typically then you would have probably taken another kit or parts from another kit to make a final product, either because each of the kits is inaccurate, you wanted an accurate version, so you use the accurate pieces from two kits, or a variant, so you might take the weapon from a particular kit, say a 5 centimeter high velocity gun from a late Panzerkampfwagen 3, to put on a tank variant, maybe a Russian tank, a captured Russian tank, to make it a kit bashed version of a captured Russian tank captured by the Germans and armed by them. Here we're doing the same thing, we're just obviously creating something that doesn't exist, never has existed, and let's hope never will exist. What I was also thinking of doing with this is I have a 3D scanner. So once this is done, and I've primed her, I'll prime her in white, because that's very good for 3D scans. I'll scan her, and then I'll actually have some merch of the short skipper. You'll be able to buy little short skippers. I think I'll maybe include it as a Patreon and channel member reward. I think that'd be pretty cool. So you can see this is the rough work I'm doing at the moment, and the reason I like sprue goo is because you can see I filled these, you can just see from inside hopefully, the plastic card I put on, and obviously filled with sprue goo, and I've just carved that, and if you didn't know the portholes were there, it just looks like I've filled an area of the kit. Now, one of the things you will get with sprue goo occasionally, these little bubbles. You just put more sprue goo in, sand it down. But nothing particularly onerous in any of that. Looks a bit like scar tissue, over the surface. This. We do obviously need to fill in these pieces as well, but I'm not going to do that here because I still need to lower and flatten. Making sure what the best way to do that is. Right now, there's a cut out piece, I'm not sure. So StreamYard just lost connection to my microphone there. Hopefully it's back. I'm not very impressed with StreamYard. Muss and I recorded our Christmas special at Beyond the Box. Go and check that out if you've not already seen that. So we do have a separate channel for Beyond the Box. That way we can obviously keep it all separate from our channels in terms of monetization and stuff, because we're both doing it. Otherwise one of us would have to do all the stuff and it would get a bit messy. But it has been, you know, the audio quality on that, even though we were doing local recordings, it was pretty bad. So considering I pay for StreamYard, I'm not that impressed. But yeah, this obviously will need a little bit more work and more building up. So I'll probably put some plastic hard shims here to sort of fill out that part of the body a little bit. But at the moment, this is all just rough work, carving down the big pieces I've got here. This is a fairly blunt scalpel, so when you're doing bigger work like that, I don't want to be using your sharpest stuff because it will get very blunt very quickly, and you're more likely to slip when you're doing, call it donkey work. And you're more likely to cut yourself if you're using a very sharp scalpel. So a larger, not scalpel sharp blade is fine for this sort of stuff. It's just about getting it into the rough shape, because we're still going to need to fill and sand over this. This is getting the shape, not the final form, not the final finish. A few more bubbles there. And one of the ways to avoid bubbles or minimize them is I just used quite a thick sprue glue here, which you are more likely to keep bubbles in because it's thick, it's going to fold around them, they're not going to escape easily. I can use very thin sprue glue on this, which is more self-leveling and it won't have that issue with the bubbles. And of course this is messy. You can see I'm getting plastic shavings absolutely everywhere. But then of course you can recycle these by sticking them back in your sprue glue bottle and adding some more solvent. It's the joy of sprue glue. It's eternal. So the 2023 review, I say it'll go out on Friday at 8 o'clock UK time, and it's just going through what I did this year, how the channel's changed, kind of main things from my point of view. And obviously a lot of people have joined the channel during the year, so you may not be aware of some of the older videos, because people do sub, they don't necessarily go through back catalogue or stuff. And there might be something interesting for some people in some of that. It allows me a chance to kind of draw people's attention to certain things that they may not have been aware of. So if you could join me for that premiere on Friday night, that would be very much appreciated. Now, of course, I will be removing all of these rivets during the process of kind of smoothing all of this out. So none of the original raised rivet detail is going to survive. So you need to worry about that. gosh, you're supposed to relax at Christmas, aren't you? This is hard work. We're starting to get the main pieces of this smoothed out into kind of more what is going to be the final sort of overall shape of the hull. Once gone over this, sort of filled in all of those, once we've got the bottom piece on and all of the pieces how we want it, I've gone over this, filled all the little bubbles and stuff from the thick sprue glue, and we'll start on sanding. And that will sort of bring it all together into a uniform finish, so that it doesn't look like a load of bits just cobbled together. It actually looks like one contiguous form, which is ultimately what we're looking for. There we go. So actually, because sprue glue is plastic, and it's relatively easy to cut and shape. It doesn't crack. It's not brittle in the way that some fillers are. If I'd done this using most fillers, it would have easily cracked and broken, especially things that have quite a almost chalky texture to them. You can see there, that's all going to be nice and continuous, smooth. Smooth route. So I've got this massive piece to do. Now, do I tackle that now or not? Maybe started it, I feel. Give you guys an idea. Because ultimately, that's, other than actually making the flying boat, just to demonstrate what you're able to do with a few fairly simple tools that anybody has access to. Anybody can make sprue glue. Everybody has a knife, craft knife. So this isn't out of the realms of possibility for any modeler, really. What you need more than anything is guts, because the hardest part on these things, I think, is, like the song says, the first cut is the deepest. It's always hard to take something which is, let's face it, fine, and deliberately break it, but break it in a very specific way. It kind of goes against, sort of our fibre as creators. But you can see, hopefully there, you can see how it's smoothing off. So again, I'm not looking to make this absolutely perfect here, because the surfacing and finishing will come later. This is just to get that basic shape. So just to take down these main kind of ridges and sort of almost scar tissue appearance into something which is more like filled holes, which we're getting to. You can hopefully, I can see, I don't know how well it's coming out here, but you can see a clear difference between the two sides. And this looks like something which is still applied. This stuff looks more integrated. See, I'm trying to come in from the edges, which is our low point, if you like. Because it has built up. And it also means we're cutting away from us, which is much more important for these big pieces than it is, when you're doing little trimmy bits with a bit more control. Like, if I'm doing the edge of something, I've got much more control doing that than I have doing away from me, because it's easier to slip. Whereas these big pieces, not so much. I think he's with my skipper there. So let's stop doing that. Put a bit of an added constraint. I'm trying to actually work this, but I think the thing is, to boldly go, Stirling is quite a narrow aircraft compared to the Sunderland and ultimately the skipper. So if I'd used the Stirling for this, I think it would have the breadth that I'd need to add the sections in the fuselage, which I think would be more difficult. Now, the reason I'm having a bit of difficulty here is because on the Sunderland, it actually flares out from the wing to here. It goes out and then it comes in. So we may need to address that. I need to actually take this down a bit. But for a minute, I think I'm pretty much done with most of that. So shaving more off that edge. Again, this kind of broad strokes. So, but that isn't too bad. What's that been? 20 minutes of carving away just to that stage. A little bit of filling, so this area here needs a little bit where it's going down a little. But you can see from the other side how where we glued it in and then put the sprue glue on, it's melted into where we had the portholes and softened the plastic, and porthole sides actually come out. That's actually really good because that means we've got a really strong bond there. It just shows how the sprue glue obviously has solvent in itself, so the sprue glue is acting as a cement here as well. So effectively we've welded it from both sides. So that should give that lots of structural strength. So yeah, it's pretty good. Right, let's tidy this up a little bit because we've got time. So again, guys, if you've got any questions, any comments or anything, please do put them in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. So there's a fair amount of plastic. We just ended up shaving it. If I scoop it all up, you can see it's a fair amount. Again, that can go back in the old sprue glue. I mean, considering we used about a third of our jar there, this will obviously all condense down. We've probably got about a third of what we put on back. I'm not going to put it in right now because I don't want to have big chunks in there right now. Okay. Now, I do have this handy little box here on lateral flow tests because Maria did get COVID for Christmas back from Barcelona. Fortunately, I didn't catch it. She was most unhappy that she suffered in silence by herself. Well, not silent. She was not silent. Let's turn our attention to the wing. So the wing here, we did a lot of filling in last time. The thing is, it still needs quite a bit of filling. So in terms of what's actually proud, we don't have an awful lot. So we can trim some of it back a little bit. See what we're working with. Scrape. Apologise for the nails on a blackboard kind of sound there. But I find scraping with the edge of a blade, don't do it with a new blade, it does ruin them. But I find that is one of the best ways to pare down thin amounts of material pre-sanding, pre-coarse sanding. We also filled the holes here that the floats we've got on the Sunderland. Now this, if you recall, was our first actual application of sprue goo. It was quite liberal. It needed quite a bit of time to dry just on that plasticard. So the plasticard was supporting it. You can see here the plasticard has melted and sort of got these ridges on, sunk slightly, which is one of the reasons why it's sagged here, but it's really strong. So a combination of that plasticard and I'm putting up a fair bit of force there. You can see it's flexing, but it is not breaking, not cracking or anything. So using sprue goo has a lot of advantages. I know I go on about sprue goo quite a bit, but I don't know why people don't use it more and rely on the proprietary fillers, which are all well and good. But at the end of the day, they usually contain, and they might dry faster and stuff, but they don't produce this sort of bond. And the material is not plastic. At the end of the day, it is some sort of grainy thing, usually suspended in a solvent that then fits in and kind of goes, but I've not found one other than the epoxy ones, which of course work on a different principle, but they don't bond in the same way to plastic, so there'll always be a weak point at the joint, whereas these is much more like with plastic cement. It is no surprise a lot of plastic cement's called plastic weld and all this stuff, because that's what you're doing. You're welding the two together. You're melting both pieces and rejoining them, chemically melting rather than heat, obviously. Once we get this back to all these excess pieces off, we go ahead with a second application here of sprue goo. And we'll have a look at the engines. Now, one of the reasons I haven't done anything on the skipper, one is I kind of want to do it on stream for you guys, so that you don't just see a big gap. Now, granted, I intended to do this wing to the same sort of stage as this, so I just haven't had a chance. One is obviously because it's Christmas. Two is because I am currently finishing off the gannet. If you follow my Instagram, you'll see I put up a little teaser picture of one of the edges of the wing. So I am doing my gannet with its wings folded, Bombay open, and going with all of the options, as it were. I'm not going with a kit supplied version of the livery of the gannet. I have finished it in Outlaw Paints, so it is painted. I am 3/4 of the way through the decals. I am at the moment just got, or I have at the moment just got the underside decals to put on. Not as much as the Hunter. A whole section of the decals is actually for the weapons, so that can be held up a little bit. But that's one of the reasons that I do want to get the gannet build out. Come to the time where we can put more sprue glue in there. Now, I need to find what I was applying my sprue glue with before. My little applicator. I've got all my other tools here. Where is my applicator? A couple of COVID tests, one positive, one negative. You should, of course, dispose of those. Don't leave them lying around like my girlfriend has. What have we done with that? Well, we shall improvise. We shall use a piece of sprue. What better to put on sprue glue than a piece of sprue? I mean, obviously there are many things better. This is make at least one side of it flattish. There we go. Flat-ish sprue glue applicator. I feel like I'm sort of being the Ray Mears of modelling here, just using what you find out in the wild to do modelling. You don't need real tools, you just fashion them yourself with a piece of sprue. So the main thing I'm trying to do here is just build up the volume. Ideally, if I had some of my thick sprue glue here, I'd use that because it contains less solvent, and less solvent is less likely to, sag the other pieces, soften the other pieces. But what I have is what I've made up. So just go with this. So for those of you who think, well, why are you selling sprue glue? Because you can make it for free, right? And you can, absolutely. And I would encourage everybody to. But There's a couple of reasons why I make and sell it. So one is that I make it because some people don't want to, or don't feel they have the, not the ability, that's not the right word, but don't feel comfortable doing it, or don't have the right solvents. You can use Tamiya Extra Thin, of course, to make up your sprue goo. You can use Humbrol cement, you can use contact or whatever, and that's all fine. So that is one part that some people don't feel that they can, or don't feel comfortable doing it. The other reason, or one of the other reasons, is consistency. So I use the same chemicals, the same quantity of sprue from a bulk set of sprue, so it's the same plastic. I'm actually producing different colors as well. It really matters, but if you wanted to use a different color to highlight which bits are sprue goo and which are the original plastic, for instance, or if you want to blend it, do the opposite and blend it in with what you already have. So that's another reason. But consistency, so that if I make sprue goo now, myself at my home, I'll chuck some sprue in and use some Tamiya Extra Thin or some Humbrol starter set cement, because Humbrol starter set cement is actually pretty good for making sprue goo. It's a good starting point. The next time I make it, it's going to be different, right? Whereas I've tested out a whole bunch of how much sprue to how much solvent, a mix of solvents obviously, is going to result in different consistencies, which are most useful. So that's why I've got thin, normal and thick, and I can create those consistently, so that one, you don't have to, and two, you can come back and do it at a later date, get exactly the same, not exactly the same, there's always going to be a bit of variation, but the same general properties. Okay, so there we go. You don't want to go too thick, because of course the thicker you go, the harder, the longer it's going to take. The harder it is the solvent to evaporate, so the longer it's going to take for it to evaporate and get down to its hard state. And obviously the more solvent is there, the more likely it is to attack and deform existing plastic there. You obviously want it to do that a little bit, because that's how it welds stuff together. That's how plastic cement works. And then just the other point on sprue goo, and why you might want to buy it from someone like me rather than make it yourself, is, of course, it's not free. Tamiya Extra Thin cement costs money. Now I am using solvents which, because I'm buying them trade and in bulk, are a lot more cost effective to make sprue goo out of than Tamiya Extra Thin. So I can sell sprue goo at a decent price for you guys and not go bankrupt. So obviously, I was making out of Tamiya Extra Thin, I wouldn't do that. So it's just not viable as a business. But that's the reason that, one, I make sprue goo myself, and two, why I make it for sale in the shop, because of all those factors. There you go, putting that in the fuselage. It's not bad. It's not bad, that is coming along. So we definitely need to close up that wing. As I say, I think we need to remove more material from here to be able to get that where it needs to be. I don't really want to do that Now I've just put that there, so I'm going to put that to one side. Alrighty. So I think going to have a quick look at the engines, and then I'll probably call it. So around an hour, I think is reasonable, right? So the original Sunderland engines obviously include above and below the wing the skipper. You can just look at the image here. The skipper, the engines are basically the top of them is in line with the top of the wing. So we're going to need to take all of that piece away. I'm going to do that really crudely. Again, this is not fine modeling skill. The fine skills, the finesse part will come later. This is not the finesse part. This is the brutal big tool part. This is the use your Dremel, use your cheap snippers. We're using big price tag god hand type things on this. Okay, so we are kind of there, I think. Let's just look at the picture again. So actually the line of the actual prop is in line with the bottom edge of the wing. So yeah, it's kind of like that. So the engines are transitioned down about a centimetre. Maybe a little more, actually. Maybe it's like that. I think. So I think we're going to take it all the way to the edge of the cowling. It's just unfortunate I actually made these, because it would be better if they weren't, but hey. And the other thing is they don't have these cooling gills. It's almost like they are either liquid-cooled radial engines or just straightforward non-radial inline engines. So we're going to have to get rid of this piece as well. But that isn't a matter, isn't that easy? What to do with that? It may actually be easier to cut these rather than try and take these down. That is definitely a matter for a saw. Let's give it a go with a handsaw and see how we get on. So part of this is obviously experimental. So if you want to do this kind of thing yourself, for one, obviously choose a kit that you don't mind just destroying. Because there are any number of things that can go wrong. And you don't want, this is your one prize kit that you just want to particularly make into this version. Get some experience doing it before you do that. But let's say you're on that level playing field, you're all understanding that this is a disposable kit for you. Then it's just a matter of trying stuff. Don't be afraid to try. It might not work out, but we've accepted the loss, right? If you've accepted the loss already, there's nothing to lose. I think this is a great philosophy for many things. So, for instance, casino, right? Casinos, gambling, they can destroy lives. But ultimately, the power is all yours. Right? So if you choose not to, you don't have to carry on any run. So whenever I've been on a casino night, I've been on a few times with friends and with work and stuff. Basically, you just take, okay, tonight is going to cost me, say, £50 or £100 or $100, whatever. And you just accept that is a cost for the evening, right? This is like you take your $100, £100, whatever, out some chips. You spend it. If you win stuff, carry on spending it, but you don't get any more money out, right? You don't take your card with you. You just take the money to take out that stuff, and you accept you're going to lose it all, and you have fun in the evening, and it's cost you that amount of money. If you approach it that way, casino is never going to win more than $100 out of you, £100, whatever you've taken in. It's only when you get into this, oh, if I just play one more round, I can. No. Casinos aren't rich because that works, right? And for every one person that has made some money in the casino, there are hundreds, probably thousands, that are destitute from just being unable to control their gambling. So I think if you accept that loss, and this is now going back to the kits, so you accept that you are, the kit is gone. Anything from that point is a bonus. Yeah. So wondering now is, I'm just using that. This is much easier to work with now. I haven't cut it off 100% flush. I'm not worried about that right now. Partially because actually it's obviously angled, so I am going to need a little bit of asymmetry. I'm just using it to put on there where I want it and just make sure that's kind of where it needs to go. Now I can put this on a piece of sandpaper, do it to its flat, all that kind of stuff. I don't think we're actually going to even need to do that, because once I've got a mounting for this, we're going to have to construct the actual engine body itself anyway. But that looks about right. So with the axis of the propeller just coming in underneath, under the plane of the wing, that I think is good for what we've got on the image. So just need to do that 4 times. What I'll actually probably end up doing, once this is all dried, it's already skinned over. That's not bad. It's no longer sticky, that is just smooth and skinned over. I can push it and mold it a little bit if I wanted. Oh, it's already skinned over, that's nice. So I think we're on our way with that. If that's where we're going to do it, I don't know actually. I've got the picture if that's going to be where it is, or it's going to be further along or what. We'll come to that later. A little bit of a divot there. Probably put some more on if we wanted. We can smoosh this around a bit. And not worried too much at this stage. We've got a few more rounds to go. These wings anyway. But that isn't looking too bad. It's looking hopeful. Let's put it that way. It looks hopeful. So far, you know, we're playing blackjack and holding our own. This is not an endorsement of gambling, by the way. It's about knowing your limits and sticking to them. Now, whether I use this or not, I don't know. Obviously, I'm not going to use this sort of cooling vanes, flaps, whatever you want to call them. But this piece, the actual cowling piece, whether I'm going to use that to actually form something, or whether I'm just going to use some sort of plasticard. I'm not sure. Even if I use plasticard, I might use it as an internal strengthening piece. That might work, but I think it might be a bit too flat by itself. So what I might actually have to do is cut a section to act as kind of like a spine, to then have the main plasticard around it. So making this flat, 90-degree flat rather than what I've cut out there, is probably a good thing, because if I don't do that, I'm not going to be able to form that nice cylindrical, at least partially cylindrical engine pod that's then going to kind of fit here. Even if I don't do that, so you kind of need half, well, 2/3 of it really, I suppose, because it does, in the picture, can come a bit round. I'm still going to need it to be flat as a basis, I think. So that's probably the next stage for these. So for this one, I obviously need to cut out all of these, cut these pieces off, put the plastic card in, fill, get to this stage. In retrospect, I should have probably started with this one because it had less holes in, but hey, you live and learn. See here, I've taken out that extra little bit in this one. And that joint there is much better in terms of how much it's not being pushed. It's because this one still has that square joint. It needs to be chamfered in a little bit more, only probably 3 or 4 millimeters. It shows you what a difference a small amount makes if it's in the right shape and in the right place. Now, doing this sort of thing is where you're likely to stab yourself. Doing this. Don't do what I'm doing. Do it in a more safe manner. Just doing it so that hopefully I can show you that same kind of action on this wing. So you're just cutting a groove, basically, just to get the freedom to be able to come in. Need more. Now, if you need to use a bigger tool to start with, like the snippers, like a razor saw, do it. Be smart. You've got to make sure that it does actually go down, not leaving some structure inside the wing that is actually going to prevent two joining together. Make sure the bits are out, because the last thing, just close it all up, and you've got rattling, starting to curve sort of this point, and we've given enough space so that it can come together. And we can just fill that in with sprue glue, and that's actually glued up. This will actually need quite a bit of clamping. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'll clamp it at the end and glue it, and I'll actually let that set, and then move around to the front, clamp it a couple of more times, let that set, and do the same at the bottom. Rather than try and do it all at once, if you try and do it all at once, you'll apply uneven force, and you're more likely to sort of splay out and not get the effect you want. So think of it like spot welding. So you want to do a spot weld at the end to tack it in place while you then go around the other pieces. And if you're holding a piece like this and actually doing it, you can feel where the tension is. Yeah? You can feel where it's going. The other thing you could do is do it at the front first. So clamp it here. Make sure that is all glued properly. Then move to the side and finish off at the back. Yeah. So it really depends on the piece. I think for this one, because I've got enough leeway here, it doesn't matter. I can do the end. I shall probably thin this out a little bit more first, because this still has a big chunky bit from being. I mean, the FX kit, the FX Symbol kit is quite chunky anyway, but it still has, you know, mid-wing chunkiness here compared to what it should be. Yeah, I mean, even just doing that, just a little preliminary thinning has helped. I don't want to thin it too much, of course, because this from the AI is quite a chunky thing, and we don't want to make it look weird in the way that it suddenly goes down to a really thin point, which again is one reason that it might be better to start here to get that natural sort of flow down. I might actually, probably will clamp it there first, because it's not quite meeting, but I want all the pieces either side to be touching solid. Fill that in with sprue glue, that'll strengthen it, whilst I then clamp the next piece and glue it along. I can't do that right now because I don't have my clamps here with me. They're out in the shed. Garage, I should say. Man cave, whatever you want to call it. Modelling workspace, that sounds more professional, doesn't it? So that's, I think, where I'm going to call it for this evening. Appreciate it wasn't very long, just gone over the hour mark. But you can kind of see the process and the methodology I'm going through. You know, it's a matter of blanking off the pieces that you don't want seen, filling them, shaving them back, getting that rough shape. Next will be actually forming the bottom of the hull, because there's no point going any further on this, right, until we've got the main piece. So what I'll probably do is put some cross structural pieces here to keep that, because we've got nothing. You know, we would have had the hull coming across, and we've got nothing here at the moment. So we need some pieces, just plastic card pieces to come across, some beams effectively, to keep that nice and strong, while we then can form. Actually, we might end up doing some structural pieces that are formed, but we still need those internal pieces, because those will help us when we actually then come to pieces which can sit in here and form the shape of the bottom of the hull. And then we can basically skin that over with more flexible plastic card. So plastic card that's a bit more like this, perhaps not quite this thin, a little bit too thin. Probably something more like this. This is about 20 thou, something like that, 20, maybe 30 thou. Obviously not all the paint on it. So those sort of structural cross beams will form out of this. This is 1 millimeter thick. This is really strong. You know, it's about as thick as the actual hull of the injection molded hull of the Sunderland. So that'll give us that sort of cross structural strength. You can actually see, though, I don't know if we can get that here. Can you see here? Pointed it. Probably see it better actually from the outside. See here? Where the sprue glue has actually bridged this gap. There's quite a gap. That is 7, 8 millimeters. And that has filled that. That is It's quite amazing that it's gone across and done that. And if you can see, that is, pretty hard, but it's structural. That is holding that together. So again, the glory of sprue goo. Try making some. If that doesn't work, try buying some from me. The other piece here is, I'm just shaving this down a little bit. Need to blank this piece off. And again, I'm probably going to do exactly what we did with the others. Just use a piece of that fairly flexible plastic. This stuff, this is actually probably what I'll use for that skin. Just cover that. In fact, we could do that now, couldn't we? Do that as a last little piece. So again, this doesn't need to be rocket science. Got a piece there, score the plastic card, get it out. Enable you to get a piece to kind of put against it. Okay. So we are like that. That card doesn't take much to score and just bend to cut it. So we're here. Yeah, barely drawing that across. Now when you've got a narrow piece like that, you're not going to be able to snap it. But if you get your, I'm not going to cut with these, I'm just using them as bending edge, see? So now I've got that piece fits in the square piece. I can come back, look at how much I need to trim off. And basically now I can just nip with these. Doesn't matter if we take a bit too much off because we're going to fill this with sprue goo anyway. Pressing keys with the sun skipper again. Go that way around. Cut this slightly asymmetrically. This will tell me extra thin. So actually, I'm just going to tack this in place. Again, you can think of this a bit like a spot weld. I'm not intending this to be the final placement because it's not finished, but I need to cut off some of this. Effectively, I'm just using it like another pair of hands. Again, all of this is going to get sanded. So we're not talking about finish, we're talking about just filling a hole. Doing the rough shape of it. So again, I'm just using the hull as the template. Just cutting little pieces off. Shaving off those edges just against the hull. Until it goes in, basically. So this is really crude. Still needs trimming at this side. Okay, that I think is going to be enough. There we go. We've basically got the shape for this side, for the round side, and we're just a little bit proud up here. Yeah. So you can shape this a little bit. This will be much easier when it's actually fully dry, obviously. I'm just going to give you the idea. Obviously, I'm going to use Sprugo on that. I'll support it from underneath with some Sprugo as well. But basically, we've closed off that little turret piece. So again, complex shape, but not a complex way of filling it. Hello, Miss Modeler. We're just about finished, I think. I don't know about so lovely. It's it's a bit of a Frankenstein at the moment, but she's getting there. She's getting there. We are using the most Frankensteinian tools with our homemade Sprugo applicator. So again, this is not finesse work. It's, you know, blob it on. We're going to shave most of that off anyway. That's going to give it some bulk and some strength on that side. And then we'll do the same thing underneath. Nice big blob of it. Again, so that we're not pushing it in. So this will actually give it that structural strength from below when we come back to shave that piece off the top, and then blend it into the hole, both carving wise, as we'll do as a first step, and then, you know, when we come back to sand and everything later. So the other thing with, you know, some model fillers is that you can get quite advanced into your build. You know, you've got everything smooth, and you apply a little bit too much pressure and the whole thing will just pop. It's happened to me in the past, and it is the most infuriating thing, because at that point, there's, you know, it ruins your finish. You know, you've already painted, you've done everything, perhaps you're going across, just, you know, sanding before you put your gloss coat on or something, and it just ruins it, and it's just horrific. That won't happen if you've got something which is essentially part of the structure of the aircraft. So, oh, tell a lie, I'm going to do another piece. Of 3 times of asking before we finish. Yeah? So if you recall, last time we formed this very basic cross structure that we could then come back when it was dry, which of course it is now, and dump a load of Sprugo in to blank off this, you know, again, blanking off a former turret piece. So it'll need more than this one, obviously, but this will get the bulk of that And then we can come back once this is all dried and put more on, then we'll shape it all around. So there it is. The short skipper, still looking short, looking a little bit more like you can see what the fuselage will be like when we've eventually got all of that. Of course, I need to get rid of all of this scar material on the side in the same way that we did here tonight. But the next big thing will be forming that lower hull, so then we can work on blending this rear piece in and forming the new front. That's probably going to be a big job by itself. So what I'll try to do, I can't make any promises, but what I'll try to do off camera is those bits that that I said I would before and haven't had a chance to because of all of the other pieces that I mentioned. But I will try to get this second wing, starboard wing, to the same place as this, and also get that fuselage on this side so that we don't have to waste any time next time doing it. What I may do for the other wing is actually glue up the ends. I won't do one of them just so that you can see the process live when I do that. But that will be in the new year. So, as I said, I've got a roundup of 2023 on Friday. That goes out at 8 PM GMT. So if you want to join me there, please do. I'd be more than happy to have you. And that, I think, will be everything until 2024. So there we go. Oh, I'm slightly skewy. I'm always slightly skewy. Anyway, that is all for me from the short skipper for tonight. As I say, my 2023 roundup will do all of that bit, so I won't say anything more about 2023. I really want to be looking forward now. So the next time I actually get in front of the camera will be 2024. I'll be talking about some of the changes that I'm making. I mentioned a little bit in the 2023 roundup about what I want to be doing, but I want to define those a little bit more in that. I also want to make some predictions. So I'm going to put my Nostradamus hat on and make some predictions for 2023. And then this time next year, we'll see how well I did. That'll be quite a fun exercise. So with that, I wish you all a fantastic last few days of the year. Have a very happy New Year's Eve, and I'll see you in 2024. Okay? Cheers, guys.